Captain Sung Woo walked into the big meeting room where all the alien leaders sat waiting. The room was huge with bright lights everywhere, making his green and brown uniform look even more simple compared to all the shiny alien technology around him. The air felt thick, and he could hear strange sounds coming from the different alien species as they talked among themselves. The first to speak was Admiral Blix, a tall lizard-like creature whose skin could change colors. His scales shifted from blue to red as he looked at the human captain with what seemed like amusement. Behind him sat rows of other aliens, each stranger than the last. Some had multiple eyes, others had tentacles instead of arms, and a few looked like giant insects with clicking sounds coming from their mouths. Admiral Blix stood up and his voice boomed through the translator device attached to his throat. "Look at what Earth sends to fight in our great war," he said, pointing at Sung Woo's uniform. "Those green and brown patches you call camouflage are useless against our technology. We have thermal sensors that can see the heat from your body from miles away. We have quantum scanners that can track the smallest particles you leave behind. Your hiding techniques are as old as your primitive weapons." The room filled with sounds that Sung Woo guessed were laughter from the different species. The insect aliens clicked their jaws faster, and the tentacled ones made gurgling noises. The captain stood perfectly, still watching each alien carefully and remembering their faces. He noticed which ones laughed the loudest and which ones seemed to be the leaders. A tall alien made of purple crystals stepped forward. Her body sparkled under the bright lights, and she had 6 eyes that blinked one after another. "Perhaps Earth would be better helping with supplies," she said in a voice that sounded like wind chimes. "Earth humans could carry food and medical equipment to the real warriors. Let the advanced species handle the actual fighting against the Void Collective." More laughter filled the room and the sounds got louder. Some aliens made noises that sounded like screaming. Others made deep rumbling sounds that shook the floor. Sung Woo watched them all, carefully noting how they moved, how they held their weapons, and what made them feel confident. He was learning everything he could about his enemies while they thought they were just having fun. The crystal alien continued speaking. Her voice got louder as she became more excited. "Humans are too weak and too stupid to fight in a real war. Their technology is thousands of years behind ours. They still use chemical explosives while we have energy weapons that can destroy entire cities. They still wear cloth uniforms while we have armor that can stop any attack." Other aliens began shouting their agreement. A creature that looked like a giant spider waved its many arms in the air. "Yes, the human weapons are toys compared to ours. Our sensors can see through solid rock. Our computers can predict enemy movements before they happen. What can these primitive humans do against such power?" Sung Woo finally spoke, his voice calm and quiet. "Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Earth will contribute to this war in our own way." The aliens thought his soft voice meant he was scared. They believed his politeness meant he was giving up. They had no idea that he was studying each one of them like a hunter studies prey. After the meeting ended, Admiral Blix walked over to the human captain. The reptilian alien was much taller than Sung Woo, and he used his size to try to intimidate the human. "Your planet should accept a smaller role in this war," he said, with a cruel smile. "Fighting the Void Collective requires advanced tactics and superior weapons, not your ancient games of hiding in bushes." The Admiral expected the human to look frightened or to beg for mercy. Instead, Sung Woo just nodded politely and looked directly into the alien's yellow eyes. "We understand your position, Admiral," he said quietly. Something about the human's steady gaze made Blix uncomfortable. The reptilian took a step backward before catching himself and walking away. As the meeting broke up, the aliens gathered, in small groups talking excitedly about how they would divide up Earth's resources once the war was over. They planned to take human colonies for themselves and use human workers as slaves. None of them thought Earth could possibly be a threat to their advanced civilizations. The insect aliens demonstrated their energy weapons to each other. The beams could cut through metal like it was paper. The tentacled creatures showed off their force field generators that could stop any physical attack. The crystal beings displayed scanners that could detect the smallest movement from incredible distances. Sung-woo walked slowly through the groups of aliens, listening to their conversations and watching their demonstrations. Each piece of technology was impressive and deadly, but the captain noticed something important. All of these weapons and devices worked by detecting energy signatures or metal components. The aliens had built their entire military around finding enemies who fought like they did. As he left the meeting hall, Sung-woo saw alien soldiers training with their advanced equipment. They practiced shooting at targets that glowed with heat. They used their scanners to find hidden metal objects. They seemed very proud of how their technology could find any enemy no matter how well hidden. The human captain walked to his small transport ship thinking about everything he had seen. The aliens were powerful, and their technology was amazing, but they all shared the same weakness. They believed that having better machines meant they would always win. They had forgotten that wars were won by soldiers, not by equipment. Sung-woo sent a coded message back to Earth. The message was simple, but important. The aliens think we are harmless. They do not watch our ship movements. They do not consider us a real threat. Recommend immediate deployment of Ghost Protocol teams to jungle worlds. 3 days later, small human ships began leaving Earth, heading toward planets covered in dense forests. The alien fleets were too busy preparing for major battles to notice a few tiny human vessels. The ships were designed to look like civilian transports, and their destinations seemed unimportant to the alien commanders. On each ship were 4-person teams of Earth's most elite soldiers. These were not regular troops but specialists trained in the most dangerous environments on Earth. They had learned their skills in the Amazon rainforest, the jungles of Southeast Asia, and the dense forests of Korea. They knew how to become invisible without using any technology at all. The aliens had made a terrible mistake in dismissing these human warriors. They were about to discover that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one you never see. The stage was set for the galaxy to learn what human camouflage could really accomplish, when used by soldiers who understood that the best hiding place was not behind advanced shields, but inside the environment itself. Staff Sergeant Kim Do pressed his body against the massive tree trunk, listening to every sound in the alien jungle around him. He had been living on the planet Verdania Prime for exactly 2 weeks, and during that time he had learned to speak the language of the forest. The calls of strange birds told him when patrols were approaching. The rustle of leaves warned him when aircraft passed overhead. Even the insects had become his allies, carrying information through their movements and sounds. The Tay jungle was unlike anything on Earth, but the principles were the same. Find cover, become part of the environment, and never let the enemy know you exist. The trees grew so tall that their tops disappeared into the clouds. The air was thick and wet, making it hard to breathe, but perfect for hiding heat signatures. Strange plants covered every surface, and many of them moved when touched, giving Kim Do perfect opportunities to mask his own movements. 300 meters away through the green darkness, a patrol of Mordani soldiers moved along a path, their heavy boots crushing the soft jungle floor. Their armor gleamed with sensor equipment that should have detected any threat within a mile radius. Energy shield generators hummed quietly, on their backs ready to protect them from any attack. The 4 soldiers walked in a straight line, completely confident that their technology would keep them safe. Kim Do had been watching these patrols for days, learning their routes, their timing, and their weaknesses. The aliens always took the same paths and always trusted their machines more than their natural senses. They moved through the jungle like tourists in a museum, looking at displays through their scanner screens, instead of using their eyes and ears. The human sniper had modified all of his equipment using materials found in the jungle around him. His rifle was wrapped in vines and covered with mud to break up its outline. The scope was disguised with leaves and bark. The bullets were carved from local wood that was harder than steel but completely invisible to metal detectors. Even his clothing had been treated with plant juices that masked his human scent. Moving through the jungle required patience and perfect timing. Kim Do flowed between the trees like water, finding paths that avoided the motion sensors the aliens had scattered throughout the area. The sensors were placed in logical geometric patterns that made sense to alien minds, but created obvious gaps that a human trained in irregular warfare could exploit. The Mordani patrol was complaining about their assignment. The soldiers spoke through their communication devices, not caring who might overhear because their scanners showed no enemy presence in the area. One soldier said the jungle smelled bad and made his skin itch. Another complained that the heat was making his armor malfunction. The patrol leader told them to stop whining and focus on their mission. Kim Do could hear every word through the small listening device he had built from salvaged alien electronics. The device was crude compared to their technology, but it worked perfectly for his needs. He learned their names, their fears, and their plans. The information would be useful when the time came to strike. As he moved closer to the patrol, Kim Do thought about his training in the mountains and forests of Korea. His instructors had taught him that the best weapon was not the gun in his hands, but the environment. Around him, a skilled soldier could turn any landscape into an ally using terrain, weather, and local wildlife to confuse and defeat enemies who relied too heavily on technology. The first Mordani soldier never knew what killed him. Kim Do's wooden bullet struck him in the gap between his helmet and chest armor, where the alien breathing apparatus connected to the life support system. The projectile was moving so fast that it punched through the flexible material like a needle through cloth. The soldier collapsed without making a sound. His three companions were looking at their scanner displays, trying to understand what had happened. Their instruments showed no energy weapon discharge, no metal projectile, and no enemy presence. The jungle around them appeared completely normal according to their sophisticated detection equipment. One alien suggested that their comrade had suffered equipment failure, while another wondered if he had been poisoned by a local plant. Kim Do was already moving to his next position, flowing through the undergrowth like a shadow. The remaining aliens called out to their fallen friend, but received no answer. They raised their energy weapons and began scanning the area with growing panic. Their training had prepared them to fight against other aliens with similar technology, not against an invisible enemy who used the jungle itself as a weapon. The human sniper watched from his new hiding spot just 20 meters away, close enough to see the fear. In their alien eyes, they were beginning to understand that something was hunting them, but their scanners insisted that nothing dangerous was present. Their technology was telling them they were safe, while their instincts screamed that death was very close, high above in orbit. Aboard the Mordani command ship, Admiral Blix was receiving the first reports of missing soldiers. Patrols were failing to report in at scheduled times, and when search teams went to investigate, they found only empty armor and weapons arranged in neat piles. There were never any signs of a battle, and the sensor logs showed nothing unusual. The Admiral studied the reports with growing confusion. His soldiers were elite troops trained to fight in any environment. Their equipment was the most advanced in the galaxy, designed to detect and defeat any possible threat. Yet somehow, they were disappearing in a jungle that appeared to contain nothing more dangerous than local wildlife. What Admiral Blix did not know was that Kim Do was not alone on Verdania Prime. 3 other Korean Special Forces soldiers had been deployed to different sectors of the jungle. Each one brought unique skills that would turn the aliens' technological advantages into fatal weaknesses. The war for the jungle world was about to begin in earnest. Sergeant Park Jin was an expert in demolitions, but his explosives were made from plants and minerals found in the local environment. Corporal Lee Ho specialized in electronic warfare, using simple equipment to disrupt the aliens' sophisticated communication networks. Private Yoon Soo was trained in psychological operations designed to break enemy morale through fear and confusion. Together, the 4 human soldiers represented something the galaxy had never seen before: warriors who could become completely invisible to advanced technology while using the most primitive methods to achieve devastating results. The aliens were about to discover that in jungle warfare, the most dangerous predator was often the one that seemed weakest. The morning mist hung like a gray blanket over the jungle canopy. As Sergeant Park Jin moved through the dense undergrowth toward his target, a Mordani supply convoy was making its way along the main transport route, carrying ammunition, food, and replacement equipment for the alien forces deeper in the jungle. The 6-wheeled vehicles were heavily armored and equipped with scanning systems that could detect threats from miles away. Park Jin was the demolitions expert of the Korean team, but his weapons were not the high-technology explosives that the aliens would expect. Instead, he used materials that grew naturally in the jungle around him. Certain plants, when properly combined, created chemical reactions more powerful than military-grade explosives. The best part was that alien scanners would identify these materials as harmless biological matter. He had spent 3 days preparing this ambush, studying the convoy route and identifying the perfect location for his attack. The supply vehicles always stopped at the same rest point where the path widened enough for them to turn around. Park had used this predictable behavior to plan an attack that would appear to be a natural disaster. The explosive devices were hidden inside what looked like fallen logs and rock formations scattered along the roadside. Each bomb was carefully camouflaged to blend with the jungle environment. Park had even encouraged local insects to build nests around the devices, making them look like they had been part of the landscape for months. As the first vehicle approached Park's position, he could hear the aliens inside complaining about the humidity and the strange sounds of the jungle wildlife. They had no idea that a human demolitions expert was watching them through a scope carved from local wood, waiting for the perfect moment to turn their own vehicles into weapons against them. The explosion, when it came, was massive, but appeared completely natural to the alien detection systems. The chemical reaction Park had created mimicked the gases that sometimes built up in jungle soil, creating what looked like a natural blowout. The first vehicle disappeared in a ball of fire that sent shockwaves through the trees. The remaining vehicles stopped immediately, and armed soldiers poured out to investigate. Their commander, a female Mordani with bright green scales, was shouting orders and demanding to know what had caused the explosion. Scanner readings showed only natural geological activity, exactly what Park had planned. The aliens had no idea they were under attack, while Park was destroying the supply convoy. Corporal Lee Ho was conducting his own type of warfare against the alien communication systems. Lee was positioned near the main relay station that connected all Mordani forces on Verdania Prime. His equipment looked primitive compared to alien technology, but it was designed specifically to exploit weaknesses in their quantum encryption networks. Lee had discovered something the aliens did not know about their own communication system. The quantum signals they used to prevent eavesdropping also interfered with the nervous systems of local flying insects. When he modified these signals in specific ways, he could control where swarms of aggressive bugs would attack. The aliens would think they were dealing with natural pest problems, while Lee gathered intelligence from their panicked radio calls. The third member of the team, Private Yun-Su, was conducting psychological warfare against a Mordani reconnaissance patrol. She had been following the 4 alien soldiers for 3 days, learning their individual personalities and behavioral patterns. The patrol leader was young and inexperienced, trying to prove himself to his superiors. One soldier was clearly afraid of the jungle and jumped at every unexpected sound. Yun-Su began her attack by making small changes to their environment. Equipment would be moved slightly while they slept. Strange footprints would appear in muddy areas, but only partial ones that could have been made by local animals. Food supplies would spoil overnight, as if contaminated by jungle bacteria. The cumulative effect was designed to make the aliens feel that the jungle itself was hostile to their presence. The psychological pressure was working exactly as planned. The young patrol leader became paranoid and started seeing threats everywhere. The frightened soldier made more and more mistakes while the others began to doubt their equipment. Within days, the 4-man unit was arguing among themselves and jumping at shadows, but it was Kim Do who delivered the most devastating psychological impact on the alien forces. His sniper attacks continued with deadly precision, always striking from impossible positions and always leaving no trace of human involvement. Each kill looked like an equipment malfunction or an attack by local predators. The effect on Mordani morale was beyond what any of the human soldiers had expected. Alien troops began refusing patrol assignments and demanding transfers off the planet. Some soldiers reported seeing movement in their peripheral vision, but their scanners showed nothing. Others claimed to hear footsteps following them through the jungle, but thermal sensors detected no heat signatures. Fear spread through the alien ranks like a disease. Soldiers who had been confident in their technological superiority now moved through the jungle in tight groups, weapons ready for threats their instruments insisted did not exist. The psychological impact of fighting an invisible enemy was far greater than the actual casualties the humans had inflicted. Admiral Blix found himself facing a type of warfare he had never encountered in decades of military service. His advanced sensors could detect the smallest energy signature from incredible distances, but they could not find enemies who fought with wooden bullets and plant-based explosives. His quantum communication systems were immune to conventional jamming, but somehow his orders were being intercepted and altered. The Admiral began to suspect that the Void Collective had developed revolutionary new stealth technology, or that Verdania Prime itself was somehow hostile to alien life forms. The idea that primitive Earth soldiers might be responsible for his troubles never occurred to him. The humans were simply too backward and too weak to pose a real threat. Reports of equipment failures, mysterious disappearances, and hostile wildlife attacks continued to accumulate. Admiral Blix made a decision that would prove to be his greatest mistake. He decided to lead a massive operation personally into the jungle, to find and destroy whatever was causing his forces so much trouble. The Korean Special Forces team received word of the planned operation through Lee Ho's interception of alien communications. 300 elite Mordani soldiers would sweep through the jungle in coordinated formations using overlapping sensor fields that should make it impossible for any enemy to hide. The aliens were bringing their most advanced equipment and their best-trained troops, Kim. Du gathered his team at their hidden base camp deep in the jungle. They had been remarkably successful in their mission, but this new operation would test their abilities like never before. They would be facing overwhelming numbers of highly trained enemies equipped with the most sophisticated technology the Mordani Empire could provide. The four humans began planning their response to the alien operation. They had advantages that the enemy did not suspect: complete knowledge of the local terrain, the ability to move without being detected, and most importantly, the element of surprise. The aliens still believed they were fighting against some unknown environmental hazard. Not human soldiers. The stage was set for the most decisive battle of the campaign. The aliens were about to discover what happened when human jungle warfare specialists decided to stop hiding and start hunting. The jungle that had sheltered the Korean team was about to become the site of their greatest victory. The largest military operation ever conducted on Verdania Prime began before dawn. As 300 Mordani soldiers deployed into the jungle in perfect formation, Admiral Blix himself was leading the assault, determined to solve the mystery of his vanishing troops once and for all. The reptilian commander wore experimental armor that could adapt to any environment and carried weapons that could destroy armored vehicles with a single shot from his position in the canopy of a massive ironwood tree. Kim Do watched the alien force spread out below him. The enemy formations were textbook perfect, with overlapping fields of fire and sensor coverage that should have made it impossible for any threat to approach undetected. Every square meter of jungle was being scanned by multiple detection systems. Du spoke quietly into his throat microphone, using a communication frequency that the aliens had never discovered. "This is Eagle 1. All positions report immediately." The responses came back from his three teammates scattered throughout the operational area. Hawk 2 ready at communication relay Falcon 3 positioned near supply depot. Wolf 4 standing by at extraction point. The Korean Special Forces team was about to face their greatest challenge yet, but they had spent weeks preparing for exactly this type of operation. Every member of the team knew their role and understood that failure would mean not only their deaths, but also the exposure of Earth's secret involvement. In the Galactic War, Admiral Blix moved through the jungle surrounded by his personal guard, each soldier equipped with enough firepower to level a city block. The Admiral was confident that no primitive enemy could stand against such overwhelming technological superiority. His sensors showed every heat signature, every metal object, and every energy source within a 5-mile radius. What the alien sensors could not detect was the network of traps and ambush positions that the human team had prepared over the previous weeks. Using only materials found in the jungle, they had turned the entire operational area into a killing ground that would appear completely natural to any investigation. Yoon Soo activated the first phase of their counterattack. From her position near the main alien communication relay, her equipment began broadcasting signals that interfered with the nervous systems of local wildlife. Within minutes, aggressive flying creatures began swarming the alien positions, while carnivorous plants released clouds of toxic spores. To the Mordani forces, it appeared that the jungle had suddenly become hostile for no apparent reason. Their medical scanners confirmed that they were being attacked by natural biological agents, not artificial weapons. The aliens found themselves fighting off creatures they had not even known existed while their equipment registered everything as normal environmental activity. Park Jin triggered the second phase when the alien formations reached the positions where he had placed his explosive devices. The blasts were perfectly timed to coincide with natural seismic activity that occurred regularly on Verdania Prime, causing what appeared to be a series of landslides that buried entire squads of soldiers. The explosions were massive but left no trace of artificial explosives. Alien investigators would find only evidence of unstable geological conditions and natural gas pockets that had been triggered by the weight of their heavy vehicles. Park had turned the very ground beneath their feet into a weapon. As the Mordani formations began to break apart in response to multiple emergencies, Li Ho launched his electronic warfare assault. The aliens discovered that their communication system was not just being jammed but was actively working against them. False orders appeared on tactical displays, sending units in wrong directions and creating confusion about mission objectives. Soldiers received commands to fire on positions occupied by their own forces, while officers found their status reports being altered to show non-existent threats. The psychological impact of having their own technology turn against them was devastating to troops who had been trained to trust their equipment absolutely. Kim Do waited until the alien force was completely disorganized before beginning his part of the operation. His first target was carefully chosen the communications officer, whose death would further isolate the enemy units. The shot came from an angle that the aliens' mathematical models said was impossible through a gap in the canopy that their instruments measured as too small for effective targeting. The projectile struck with surgical precision, hitting the target exactly where DOS training had taught him alien anatomy was most vulnerable. The communications officer collapsed, his equipment sparking and smoking from what appeared to be an electrical malfunction caused by the jungle's unusual electromagnetic properties. From the aliens' perspective, they were being systematically destroyed by natural hazards, wildlife attacks, and equipment failures. Their most advanced military technology was proving useless against an enemy that seemed to be the jungle itself. Every conventional response they tried only made their situation worse. Admiral Blix found himself in the terrifying position of commanding a force that was being defeated by an enemy he could not see, detect, or engage. His soldiers were elite, troops who had conquered dozens of worlds, but they were helpless against threats their training had never prepared them to face. As the operation continued to fall apart, the Admiral ordered a fighting withdrawal, but the humans had anticipated this move. The alien retreat routes had been carefully prepared with fallen trees blocking paths and swampy areas that had been made impassable through subtle changes to the local water flow. The Mordani soldiers found themselves channeled into predetermined kill zones where the jungle environment had been turned into a series of natural traps. Each step of their withdrawal brought new dangers, and their sophisticated equipment was completely ineffective against enemies that fought using the rules of nature instead of the laws of physics. By the end of the day, Admiral Blick's grand operation had become a complete disaster. Fewer than half his soldiers made it back to the extraction point, and those who survived were demoralized and psychologically broken. They had faced an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere, using weapons that their sensors could not detect. The 4 Korean soldiers watched from concealment as the alien survivors were airlifted back to their ships. They had defeated a force 75 times their size using nothing but their knowledge of jungle warfare and their ability to turn environmental factors into deadly weapons. The battle had been won not through superior firepower, but through superior understanding of how to fight in harmony with nature. The psychological impact of the defeat spread throughout the Mordani fleet like a plague. Soldiers who had been confident in their technological superiority now questioned whether their equipment could protect them against enemies who fought by rules they did not understand. The humans had achieved something far more valuable than a simple military victory. They had broken the enemy's faith in their own invincibility. Admiral Blix stood on the bridge of his command ship, staring at casualty reports that defied all logical explanation. Nearly 200 of his best troops had been lost to what appeared to be natural disasters, equipment malfunctions, and attacks by local wildlife. His medical officers could find no evidence that enemy weapons had been used, yet his forces had been systematically annihilated. The stage was set for the final phase of the human operation. The aliens were demoralized, confused, and desperate for answers they would never find. The Korean team had proven that sometimes the most primitive methods were the most effective against advanced technology. The galaxy was about to learn a lesson it would never forget. Admiral Blix stood in his command center staring at reports that made no sense according to everything he knew about warfare. Nearly 200 elite soldiers had been lost in what appeared to be a series of natural accidents and wildlife attacks. The official casualty reports mentioned landslides, toxic gas poisoning, and aggressive local fauna, but never once suggested enemy action commander Vex approached carefully, knowing that the admiral's temper had become dangerous since the failed jungle. Operation, sir. We have intercepted communications from Earth Command. They are offering to deploy what they call environmental specialists to assist with planetary security operations on worlds that have proven problematic for conventional forces. Admiral turned from his tactical display, his reptilian features twisted with suspicion. Earth had been remarkably quiet during the early phases of the galactic war content, to let more advanced species handle the major combat operations. Now suddenly, they were volunteering to help with exactly the type of worlds that had been causing problems for alien forces. Meanwhile, in the jungle below, Kim Do was studying intelligence reports that had been transmitted to his team through encrypted channels that Lee Ho had established using modified alien communication equipment. 3 more human special forces teams were being deployed to Verdania Prime, along with supplies and equipment that would allow them to expand their operations significantly. Success of their mission had attracted attention at the highest levels of Earth. Command military planners were beginning to understand that human soldiers trained in jungle warfare could accomplish things that entire alien fleets could not. The element of surprise would not last much longer, but while it did, Earth intended to make maximum use of it. Yoon-soo was monitoring alien communication frequencies when she intercepted a transmission that chilled her to the bone. Admiral Blix was planning to use orbital bombardment to sterilize large sections of the jungle. If the aliens could not find their enemy, they would simply destroy the environment that provided cover. The Korean team had perhaps hours before their sanctuary became a radioactive wasteland. Do called an emergency meeting at their hidden base camp. The 4 soldiers gathered in the natural cave system that had served as their headquarters for weeks. Their supplies were running low, and they were facing an enemy that was becoming increasingly desperate. The aliens might not be able to defeat them in ground combat, but they could still burn the entire jungle from space. The team studied maps that Lee Ho had compiled through weeks of intelligence gathering, showing the locations of all major alien installations on Verdania Prime. The Mordani had 3 critical facilities: a communication center that coordinated all military operations, a supply depot that stored ammunition and fuel for their entire force, and the command post where Admiral Blix directed the war park. Jin spread out detailed plans of each target facility. The alien installations were heavily defended with energy barriers, automated weapon systems, and overlapping sensor fields that should have made them impregnable to any ground assault. However, the Korean team had advantages that the aliens did not suspect. Du volunteered for the most dangerous assignment, the elimination of Admiral Blix himself. The reptilian commander was protected by personnel guards, experimental armor, and the most advanced security systems the Mordani Empire possessed. But Du had been studying the Admiral's daily routine through his rifle scope and had identified a critical vulnerability. Every morning at exactly the same time, Blix conducted a personal inspection of his command post perimeter. The Admiral was a creature of military discipline who never varied his schedule. Du had calculated the precise moment when the alien commander would be most exposed to sniper fire from a position the aliens believed was impossible to shoot from. Yoon-soo would assault the communication center using her expertise in psychological warfare to turn the alien operators against each other. She had developed a computer virus specifically designed to exploit weaknesses in Mordani neural interface technology. When introduced into their communication network, it would cause hallucinations and paranoid delusions among the staff park. Jin would handle the supply depot, using his knowledge of improvised explosives created from jungle materials. The facility was heavily defended, but it was also filled with volatile chemicals and ammunition that would amplify any explosion he could create. The chain reaction would destroy not only the depot but several surrounding installations. Lee Ho would provide electronic warfare support for all three operations while ensuring that no word of their attacks reached the alien fleet in orbit. His job was perhaps the most critical, because if the Mordani realized they were under coordinated assault by human forces, the political consequences could be catastrophic. As dawn approached on what the team privately called Operation Phantom Strike, the 4 Korean soldiers made final preparations for their most ambitious mission. The alien forces on Verdania Prime were about to discover what happened when human determination met alien overconfidence in an environment where technology meant less than skill. The jungle had been their teacher, their shelter, and their weapon for weeks. Now it would witness the kind of coordinated assault that humans had perfected in similar environments on Earth. The aliens had better equipment and greater numbers, but the humans had something far more valuable. They had learned to make the battlefield itself their ally. Du checked his rifle one final time. The wooden projectile in the chamber had been carved from the heartwood of an ironwood tree and treated with natural toxins that would ensure a quick kill. The shot he was planning would have to be perfect because he would get only one opportunity to eliminate the enemy commander Park. Jin reviewed the chemical formulas he had memorized for creating explosives from jungle plants. His calculations showed that the supply depot contained enough volatile materials to create a blast visible from orbit. The explosion would not only destroy enemy resources, but would also serve as a signal to other human teams. Throughout the galaxy, Yun-Su activated her computer virus and began the process of infiltrating the alien communication network. Within hours, the Mordani operators would begin experiencing hallucinations that would turn their most secure facility into a madhouse of paranoia and confusion. The psychological warfare techniques she had learned in Korea were about to be tested against alien minds. Lee Ho powered up his electronic warfare equipment and began jamming the aliens' long-range communications while maintaining their short-range systems. The Mordani forces would be able to hear each other's panic, but would be unable to call for help from their fleet. The isolation would make their defeat complete. The 4 soldiers moved out into the pre-dawn darkness, each heading toward their assigned target. The day of the Phantom Strike was about to begin, and when it ended, the balance of power in the galactic war would shift forever. The aliens were about to learn that sometimes the most primitive warriors were the most dangerous enemies of all. The first light of dawn was filtering through the jungle canopy as Kim Do settled into his final shooting position. The massive ironwood tree provided perfect concealment while giving him a clear view of the Mordani command post 60 meters away. His body was painted with mud and plant dyes, making him invisible against the natural background, even to eyes looking directly at him. Admiral Blix emerged from his command bunker at exactly the predicted time, beginning his daily inspection of the perimeter defenses. The reptilian commander moved with military precision, followed by his 6-person bodyguard detail. Their energy shields shimmered in the humid morning air, while their weapons remained charged and ready for immediate use. Du controlled his breathing and steadied his aim through the wooden scope he had carved from local materials. The projectile loaded in his rifle was a masterpiece of primitive engineering, harder than steel, but completely invisible to the aliens. Metal detection systems. It had been shaped and balanced for perfect flight characteristics over the 60-meter distance to his target. The shot, when it came, was silent and invisible. The wooden bullet flew through the morning mist, striking Admiral Blix in the exact spot where his breathing apparatus connected to his armored helmet. The impact was precise and instantly fatal. The alien commander collapsed without a sound, while his bodyguards spun around in confusion, searching for a threat their sensors insisted did not exist. At precisely the same moment, Park Jin was completing his infiltration of the main supply depot, using underground tunnels that the aliens had never discovered. The facility was protected by multiple layers of security, including energy barriers, motion sensors, and automated defense systems. But all of these measures assumed attacks would come from above ground. The explosives Park had prepared were chemical masterpieces disguised as natural geological formations. When detonated, they would create a chain reaction with the volatile materials stored in the depot. The explosion would appear to be an industrial accident, caused by improper storage of dangerous chemicals. Park placed his charges with scientific precision at points calculated to cause maximum destruction. The depot contained enough ammunition, fuel, and equipment to supply the entire Mordani force for months. When it exploded, the blast would be visible from orbit and the secondary explosions would continue for hours. Meanwhile, Yunsu had successfully penetrated the communication center by disguising herself as a maintenance technician. Her forged identification and altered appearance allowed her to walk freely through areas that should have been completely secure. The aliens never suspected that a human infiltrator could be operating in their most sensitive facility. The computer virus she introduced into their quantum communication network was a work of art designed to exploit specific vulnerabilities in reptilian brain chemistry. Within minutes, the alien operators began experiencing vivid hallucinations that made them see threats and enemies that existed only in their minds. The communication center descended into chaos as the Mordani staff began reporting impossible attacks by invisible enemies. The virus spread through their neural interfaces, causing mass paranoia and complete breakdown of their command structure. The aliens began firing on each other, convinced that shape-shifting infiltrators had taken over their facility. Li Ho watched all three operations unfold from his hidden position while maintaining perfect electronic warfare coverage. His equipment jammed the aliens' long-range communications, preventing them from calling for help, while allowing their short-range systems to broadcast panic and confusion throughout their remaining forces. The day of the Phantom Strike lasted exactly 4 hours, but its effects would be felt throughout the galaxy for years. The destruction of the supply depot created explosions that registered on seismic monitoring equipment on neighboring planets. The communication center went completely silent after broadcasting increasingly frantic reports about invisible enemies and reality itself breaking down. Admiral Blick's death sent shockwaves through the Mordani command structure that reached all the way back to their homeworld. The official cause of death was listed as equipment malfunction, but rumors spread quickly among the alien forces that something impossible had killed their most experienced commander. By noon, the surviving Mordani troops were evacuating Verdania Prime. The planet they had considered a routine occupation had become a nightmare of unexplained deaths, impossible attacks, and psychological warfare beyond anything in their military manuals. The official reports would blame equipment failures, environmental hazards, and mass hallucinations caused by unknown jungle toxins. News of the Verdania Prime evacuation spread through galactic communication networks faster than military sensors could control it. Other alien species began reporting similar problems on jungle worlds where they had established. Voices, mysterious equipment failures, unexplained disappearances, and attacks by local wildlife were becoming common themes in classified military reports. Captain Sung Woo once again found himself standing before the Galactic Council, but the atmosphere was completely different from his first appearance. The same delegates who had mocked Earth's camouflage uniforms now listened with respectful attention and barely concealed fear as he spoke about humanity's role in the ongoing war. "We have noticed," he said with characteristic understatement, "that several strategic worlds have experienced difficulties with environmental factors. Earth is prepared to deploy specialist teams trained in hostile environment operations to assist with securing these problematic locations." The insectoid delegate clicked her mandibles nervously. "Captain, what exactly do you mean by specialist teams? The reports from Verdania Prime suggest that some worlds may be too dangerous for any form of military occupation." Sungwoo smiled slightly, showing no emotion as he delivered words that would reshape galactic politics. "Our environmental specialists are trained to work with natural ecosystems rather than against them. We have learned through centuries of experience on Earth that understanding your environment is more valuable than fighting against it." Ambassador Kellick studied the human captain with new understanding. Intelligence analysts throughout the galaxy had begun connecting the pattern of mysterious incidents with human ship movements. While no government could prove direct involvement, the statistical correlation was becoming impossible to ignore. And these environmental adaptation techniques, the crystal being asked carefully, would they be suitable for deployment on other contested worlds that have proven challenging for conventional military forces? We would use whatever methods prove most appropriate for each unique situation, Sung Woo replied. Something in his steady gaze reminded every alien present of apex predators from their own homeworlds, creatures that killed not through strength, but through perfect adaptation to their hunting grounds. The council session ended with Earth being granted administrative authority over 27 contested worlds, all of which had been declared too hazardous for normal military operations. As the delegates filed out, they whispered among themselves about the terrifying possibility that humanity had been conducting invisible warfare throughout the galaxy. But none of them laughed at human camouflage anymore. Throughout the galaxy, military academies began teaching new courses about environmental warfare and the dangers of underestimating primitive technology, intelligence. Services started monitoring Earthship movements with the same attention they gave to major fleet deployments. In the jungles of dozen worlds, Korean names became whispered legends among alien troops. Stories spread about invisible warriors who could appear anywhere, strike without warning, and vanish like ghosts, leaving only death behind. The galaxy had learned that advanced technology meant nothing if you could not find your enemy. The war against the Void Collective continued, but everything had changed. Earth was no longer seen as a minor supporter providing supplies and backup services. Instead, human forces were given responsibility for the most dangerous and strategically important missions. The other species had learned to respect and fear the soldiers who fought with wooden bullets and plant-based explosives. On distant worlds similar to Verdania, prime small teams of human special forces continued their invisible war. Each group brought the same deadly combination of primitive weapons, environmental adaptation, and psychological warfare that had proven so effective. The aliens could never predict where the next attack would come from or what form it would take. The Mordani Empire never recovered from the loss of Admiral Blix and the humiliation of their defeat on Verdania Prime. Other alien governments began quietly negotiating with Earth for military assistance, fearing that human jungle fighters might be deployed against them. The balance of galactic power had shifted permanently, and in the command centers of every major alien military force, officers studied reports about Verdania Prime, trying to understand how 4 primitive humans had defeated 300 elite soldiers equipped with the most advanced technology in the galaxy. The answer was simple but terrifying. Humans had learned to make war itself invisible. Captain Sung Woo returned to Earth, knowing that humanity had taken its first step toward becoming a major galactic power. The other species would never again dismiss human capabilities, and Earth would never again be treated as a minor participant in galactic affairs. The age of human expansion among the